Welcome everybody back to another edition of Secrets to Day Trading, where I go over some trade recaps, give you guys some information to make you all better and profitable traders. My name is Mr. Banks. Welcome, guys. I think this is episode 6 now in the cards, in the books. Let's fucking go. We absolutely ate today, and I'm fucking pumped. I am pumped today, guys. I mean, what didn't we trade today? We were in AMD calls, we were in Tesla calls, we were in SPX and SPY calls. I mean, the team absolutely destroyed today. I mean, you guys see it all over, but you guys came here to learn. So let's get started. We were on SPY. Why would we take SPY calls today? What were we looking at? Well, let's take a look. I'll take these off real quick for you guys. I mean, one of the biggest things that we saw today was what? There was a gap fill, right? There was a gap fill. So we got this gap fill, right? But why would we take calls? How could we take calls? What would we look at, right? What would we look at for these calls? Well, one of the things that I've been using a lot lately is the 8. But now I want to introduce one more thing to you, right? The volume weighted average, right? So this shows you the weighted average of the price, right? Over 14 days. And it is another great tool for you guys to use, right? You could use it as a pivot level, right? So if we bounce off of it, you can use that support, head higher, reject off of it, head lower for puts. Multiple different uses for it, right? So if we cross over bullish, cross under bearish, that was one of the main things that we were looking at today, right? So we came back down, nice little liquidity grab right down here. And then what happened, right? We broke above. So this is one thing that I was definitely looking at today when we broke above the 8 and then we broke above the VWAP, right? So these two things were giving me my confluences in why I would take my trade today, right? So two big things. And even if you didn't have this, I mean, the price action itself, right? The price action itself was very, very simple to read, right? Obviously, in real time, it's not as simple, but it is simple to read. Once we were here and we came down, what do I talk about, guys? What do we talk about? We have a breakdown level, right? So at these breakdown levels, it's really important to see them, understand them, because these levels, once we break out and retest, right, and we're not heading back lower, we can now head higher, right? Support resistance flip, right? Support resistance flip, guys. So even if you were just playing the price action today, this support resistance flip, right, came back. We rejected this as the breakdown level. And once we broke above, we found it as support. You guys could have entered calls there, right? You could have entered calls at this area right here. So we had a couple things going on today. We had a break of the 8 EMA, break of the VWAP, and then we also have this nice little breakout. And then once we broke out, I mean, where do you think we're headed, right? We had this massive, massive gap fill. Now, one thing is, a safe play is always 50% of a gap fill, whether we're heading down or up. We want to look to at least take profits at that 50% mark, because sometimes it doesn't actually retrace that full gap. Sometimes it actually is just a 50% retracement into the gap. And then we break back down again. Now, today, of course, we got that full retracement in the gap. I mean, perfect trend day. I mean, it couldn't get any more simple than this, guys. Once we're in calls, right? Once we're in calls and we're in the trend, right? Trend is your friend until it bends. Type that in the chat or in the comments below. Trend is your friend until it bends, right? So now we can hold on to these until we break that trend. I mean, it was a massive, massive trend day. And like I said, let's look at the higher time frames like the 15 and the 30. So bounce off VWAP, and then we are also above the 8, right? We broke above the 8, and then we held that until the end of day. So this was a massive, massive trend day that you could have, held your calls in. If you guys want to take a look right here, I'm on the 15-minute right now. This is that breakout level that I was just talking about, right? Breakdown. We came back, and then we broke out again. So what's a couple things? Well, we bounced off the VWAP for one, and then we also broke above this 8 EMA, but this was also the break of this breakdown level. So super important level to know. We broke above, found it as support. So we got a couple of things going on here. We have a bounce off of the VWAP. So break above and bounce off of VWAP, break above the 8 EMA. And now we're breaking above this major support resistance flip level. Breakdown, broke back above. Because guys, what do stocks do? They will break and retest, break and retest, break and retest, right? So we broke down, bounced off VWAP, broke the 8 EMA. We also have found that as support of this breakdown level. And now you could have ridden these calls until the end of the day. I mean, look how perfect this trend day was. You also have, okay, so there's four things. You also have this nice gap fill here as well. So four things you could have been watching today. Obviously, it's easier said than done. I understand that. This is a trade recap. It's a lot harder during the day. But guys, if we see this and we take calls here, right? So if we took calls here, I'd put my stop if you wanted a tight stop loss. So stop losses. I mean, play this break. A tight stop loss would be the candle before on the wick, right? So I would have put my stop loss right below this wick right here. Because I would have shown a reversal, right? So if we're breaking above this level, we shouldn't break below, right? Because we're breaking out. So we shouldn't really break below this level if we are going to do a true breakout. Does that make sense, guys? If we're doing a true breakout, we're not actually going to break below this level. So I would have thrown my stop loss right here, right below this candle before, as a tight stop, right? Because if it is a true breakout, we're not going to go below that. And of course, say it came down and we broke out, it came down to here and bounced up again. I mean, we had a tight stop. You could always re-enter, right, guys? Always re-enter. And then if it broke out again, you'd have a nice breakout and it would be a continuation higher. So even if you got stopped out, that win multiple of this continuation or breakout, you would have been fine. So again, look at the higher time frames, 15 and 30 minute, right? 5 minute, I love for my entries, but then once I'm in my entry, right? So it's how that support. Once I'm in my entry, I'm going to start looking at the 15 and the 30, right? So say I took my entry off this bounce, and now I'm going to put my stop loss right here around 395, 90. You can even do a little bit lower than that, but below the candle before, because if we are doing a true breakout, we obviously are going to have a continuation headed higher. And as you can see on the 5-minute of this trend, this is something, once we broke out. So say if you didn't take a call here and you waited for this breakdown, retest, and breakout to have that support and resistance flip. Sorry, I just lost my train of thought. Did you see how the trend, right? The trend. So we had a little break of trend here, a little break of trend here. But guys, like I talk about, let's look at the higher time frames, right? If we're on a trend day, these higher time frames, especially with the 8 EMA, are going to show you that trend a little bit better. It's not going to get you stopped out as easy, right? So if you saw on the 5-minute there was a couple opportunities where you might have taken total profit, right? You might have taken total profit and got stopped out. But on these higher time frames, you're going to be able to hold the trend a lot longer, because what trend is your friend until it bends. Now, another thing I want to talk about today is once we take calls, so say we took calls here, right? So we want to sell on the strength, right? We always want to sell on the strength. So say we sold the majority of our position here and are holding runners. Even though this is reversing back down, we're not going to automatically just sell our runners, right? we're not going to automatically sell our runners because what one thing is that we're, waiting for that bounce off of the 8 EMA to hold that trend, right? We're still trying to hold this trend. So we haven't broken the trend yet. So we can easily hold on to our runners. Another thing is I mean, if we take calls here, right, you can move your stop loss to now break even, or if you sold the majority of your position, you can put it right, keep that stop loss right below it. So you could have a slight loss on your runners, but you're in runners, so it's going to be a couple bucks, right, compared to your entire trade. Um, so that will help you hold this longer, right? There's no need to automatically sell because you're coming back down, right? You're in runners. The majority of your positions should have already been sold. And now you come back down um, and you hold them, right? You hold them until you're back at break even. So, guys, when we get into a position and we start running up, and we're taking our profits along the way and we come down to runners, one of the biggest things is that we can hold those runners until we come back down to break even or slightly below it, right? We don't need to just sell our runners because the market is turning back, right? So the runners, we're trying to get the most out of our position. And especially on a trend day, you should expect a very higher move. And I mean, today we had this major gap fill. So this was something you should have been looking at. Say you took calls here, you saw the majority and this is coming back down. You should have been like, okay, I'm going to wait to see if the 8 EMA breaks. I have my stop loss set at break even. So even if it does come all the way back down, I'm at break even. I'm fine. Or slightly under, you're going to take a couple dollars loss, right? So no big deal. This will help you stay in the trade for longer. So I hope you guys enjoyed this. Actually, let me go over AMD real quick. One of the things, because we did take calls today, one of the things I was also looking at is I throw on the 200 EMA as well as this 50 EMA. I use these as levels now as well. So let's remove these. Sorry, guys. This was things that I put into our Discord today because as I make a trade and make a call out, I like to explain to everybody why I took it. So that was why that was on the screen. Um, but we're on video now, so let me explain it to you. One of the things I was looking at today was boom. We had a nice, let's go to 15 minutes. Let's throw on the extended hours. One of the things I was looking at today, right? So flip between obviously get extended hour. Another thing, sorry. Before we start the day to get your levels, definitely look at extended hours. We'll definitely show you levels a little bit better, but then also take off extended hours so you can easily see some gap fills, right? It'll show you the actual gaps in the price movement. Um, let me take off this VWAP real quick for you guys. So what did I see here, right? I saw a nice fair value gap right here. And once we filled that, I mean, it was also the retest of this, but this was a fair value gap. Now, fair value gaps happen. We have 3 candles run up, and it'll happen between the wicks of each candle, right? So this showing that there is a imbalance here. And as we saw yesterday, this imbalance was filled, right? So if we take a look yesterday, you can guys see these 3 candles, wick, wick, right? So this is showing a major imbalance right here. We came back down, we filled it and ran up. So this is a nice fair value gap. We also had one obviously below right here, 1, 2, 3 candles, right? So in between here, showing a major imbalance, right? So when we see these imbalances like this, we know that we're most likely going to go and refill them. And that's exactly what we did, right? So we refilled this one yesterday, but then today we came back down and we refilled this imbalance right here. So this was a nice bounce in this fair value gap. Now, this is something I will talk about a little bit more in sorry guys, more in detail in a later video, but look for 3. It's going to be a major move up or down. 3 candlesticks, right? And it'll be between each wick and body. So we'll see that there's a major imbalance here, major imbalance here. And when a stock comes down and fills that, it is a nice risk to reward to actually take calls if we're headed up. If it's the reject, obviously, and we're filling that imbalance up, take puts down. I say it's about an 85% to 90% win rate on this. So, I mean, this is a perfect example right here, right? Filled this imbalance yesterday, ran up, came back down, filled this imbalance today, and we ran up. So as you guys can see, these fair value gaps are something that you should definitely start looking into. I mean, there's great other traders that explain it and talk about it. Just give it a quick Google search and you will see. So I was looking for this fair value gap today and we got it, took the calls. But what else? Also talking about this 200 EMA, right? So we had a nice bounce off of this. As you guys know, the 200, especially on the daily, like I've talked about before, and the 50 are major MAs to have on your screen. Personally, intraday, I like to look at the 200 and the 50 on the 30-minute. Can show some pretty big moves, right? It can show some pretty big moves if we're getting down towards that. Obviously, we're above, bullish, below, bearish, just like if we're using the 20 or the 200 SMA on the daily. But that was one thing I was looking at, right? So I went to the 30 because looking at the higher time frames, we had a nice bounce, filled the fair value gap. So there was 2 confluences right there to take the trade. Now we did take the trade on this bounce, right? So we actually nailed the bottom of this. But as I was in the trade, like I was talking about earlier, guys, I was talking about selling into strength. So let me add the VWAP back in here. So when we grabbed the calls off of the bottom here, right, and we broke above, one of the places I sold in his strength to was this VWAP, right? So took some off at this VWAP, and then I took some off. This is the 50 EMA. I also took some off at the 50 EMA, right? So these are some levels that I was selling into strength today. So a lot of people ask me, okay, like how do you know when to sell? I only look at percentage, or you only look at your P&L, right? You're looking at the monetary value, the profits you're actually getting. Guys, we really need to start looking at levels, right? Understanding to sell in the strength and to sell at certain levels instead of, looking at the monetary value. Obviously, you can have a nice percentage, like say I want to take 20%, 10%, but please also look at levels, right? So, I mean, this one again broke the 8 EMA, had a nice curling bottom. We filled the fair value gap. So some things we could have sold in strength to this VWAP, right? So we knew that we rejected this earlier. So there was another chance that we could have rejected this, right? Because we're still below the VWAP. So I sold it. I sold some of my contracts in the strength here. And now once we broke back above, you could see we also rejected that 50 EMA. I sold in the strength here, right? So couple things that you could have sold into strength. And then obviously we started trending. So as soon as this 8 EMA was on, you could have held all the way up, right? So couple things I threw at you. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Hope you guys learned a lot from it. If you have a small account or any size account, guys, trade less, do less. Wait for trend days like this, right? Wait for a trend day like this. When we're in a range, right? When we're in a range, a lot of you get clapped. I get clapped. I'll even raise my hand. I get clapped on ranges. I don't like to trade range or consolidation days. And usually we'll have a trend day or two and then we'll consolidate, right? So just know that after a trend day, there is a high probability that we might consolidate or accumulate in a nice rangy manner. But as well, we want to trade trend days, right? We want to trade trend days. That's how you catch the big moves. And I hope I explained how to hold runners in this video. we can hold a runner, especially if we're breaking above and we're on a trend day. We don't need to sell our runners until we're back down to break even, right? We put our stop loss up to break even. So hope you guys killed it today. If you didn't, you need some help, join the Wolves, Team Wolves, baby, getting rich all 2023. Make sure you join us. We definitely got you, helping a lot of struggling traders become profitable right now, especially in this wild market. So hope you guys enjoyed this. I think this was episode 6. Mr. Banks is out. Enjoy your guys' evenings, guys. Let's absolutely kill it tomorrow.